It was still dark when the small bus stopped at the edge of the city. The air was cold and wet. A thin boy stepped down carrying a torn bag. His shoes were broken, and his hands were shaking from the wind. He looked around, but saw no one he knew. The street was empty except for a dog searching for food near a trash can. He pulled his jacket tighter. Inside the bag were only 2 shirts, a book with missing pages, and a small envelope with a few coins. His name was Amir, and he had never been this far from his village before. The bus left quickly, making a loud sound, and disappeared. Dust rose from the road, and then settled again. Amir stood alone. He felt small, but he also felt a kind of fire inside. He had come to the city to change his life. But at this moment, he was just a poor boy with a big dream, standing under a weak street light before sunrise. A sound came from across the road. 2 men were arguing near a shop with closed doors. One of them shouted, threw his hands up, and walked away. The other looked at Amir for a second and then went inside, locking the door. Amir felt a little afraid. He had read stories about cities, about crime and danger, but he also remembered his mother's words. Do not be afraid of people. Be afraid of losing your dream. He took a deep breath, stepped off the curb, and started walking. The road led to a busy market. Even at this hour, the market was waking up. Women were setting baskets of vegetables on the ground. Men were pulling heavy carts full of fruit. A boy his own age was sweeping dust from the entrance of a small cafe. The smell of bread and tea floated through the air. Amir's stomach hurt with hunger, but he had no money to spend. He put his hands in his pockets and kept moving. Suddenly, a loud noise filled the street, a child crying. Amir turned his head and saw a little girl sitting on the steps of a closed shop. She was holding a small bird cage. The bird inside was beating its wings against the bars. The girl's face was wet with tears. Amir stopped. He wanted to help, but did not know what to say. He walked closer slowly. "Are you okay?" he asked in a soft voice. His words sounded strange in the big city air. The girl looked up, but did not speak. She held the cage tighter. The bird was making a weak sound now. Amir crouched down to her level. "Is your bird hurt?" he asked again. She shook her head. "No," she whispered finally. "He is just scared. He does not like the noise." She looked at Amir's bag. "Are you from here?" "No," Amir said. "I came this morning. It is my first time." He smiled a little, trying to make her feel safe. For a moment they both were quiet, only listening to the bird's wings and the growing sounds of the market. Then the girl stood up. "My father sells tea over there," she said, pointing to a cart at the corner. "He will be angry if I am late." She turned to go, then stopped. "You look hungry," she said softly. "Come with me. He can give you some bread." Before Amir could answer, she was already walking away with the cage. He hesitated. He had learned not to trust strangers. But his stomach hurt again, and something in the girl's voice reminded him of his sister back home. He decided to follow. As he walked behind her, the market grew louder. People were shouting prices. Carts rolled by. Bicycles rang their bells. The smell of fried food made his head light. He thought about the village, about his mother waking before sunrise to make bread, about the fields where he used to help his father. He thought about the promise he had made, to study, to learn, to send money home one day. Every step in this new city felt like a step away from the boy he had been, and a step toward the man he wanted to become. They reached the tea cart. Steam was rising from a large pot. A tall man with a tired face poured tea into glasses and handed them to early workers. The girl set down the cage and whispered something to him. He looked at Amir, then at the bag on Amir's shoulder. He nodded once and handed Amir a piece of warm bread. Amir took it slowly. "Thank you," he said. His voice shook a little. The man did not smile, but his eyes were kind. "Eat," he said simply. Amir tore the bread and put a piece in his mouth. It was soft and hot, and for a moment he felt like crying. He had not eaten since yesterday afternoon. He finished quickly, wiped his hands on his trousers, and looked around. The city now was full of life. Cars, bikes, people, sounds, smells, everything moving fast. In the middle of all this, Amir felt both lost and alive. The girl opened the cage a little to let the bird breathe. It calmed down and stopped flapping its wings. Amir watched and wondered if he too could calm his heart in this strange place. He touched the book inside his bag. It was an old English reader, pages bent, cover faded. He had learned every word inside back in his village. Here in the city, he wanted more. He wanted to understand signs, newspapers, conversations. He wanted to read and speak like the people he saw on television. He wanted to learn enough English to change his future. The man poured tea for Amir and said, "First time in the city?" Amir nodded. "Then be strong," the man said. "The city is big, but your dream can be bigger." Amir held the glass of tea, felt its warmth, and looked at the sky turning light blue with the coming sun. A new day was starting. He did not know yet how hard it would be, but he knew one thing. He was not going back. He would stay, learn, and try. Even if his shoes broke, even if he had no money, even if no one helped him. He took another sip of tea, tasted the sweetness, and whispered inside his heart, "I will make it." At that moment, a man ran into the market shouting something Amir could not understand. People turned their heads. The girl closed the cage. The tea man stopped pouring. Amir looked at the crowd, moving like a wave toward the noise. Something had happened up the street. Amir set down his glass, stood up, and took a step forward without knowing why. His heart beat faster. This was not the quiet village anymore. This was the city, and the story of his new life was just beginning. Amir was born in a small village far from the city. The houses in the village were made of mud and wood. The streets were narrow and dusty. At night, the stars were bright, but there was no electricity. People knew each other by name. Life was simple, but it was also hard. His father worked in the fields from sunrise to sunset. His hands were brown from the sun and rough from work. He did not speak much. His mother stayed at home baking bread, cleaning, and looking after Amir and his younger sister, Noor. She smiled often, even when she was tired. She taught Amir to share food with neighbors and to always say thank you. Amir loved books even as a small boy. But there was no library in the village. He read old school books given by his cousin. The pages were torn, and the covers were gone, but Amir still kept them safe under his bed. At night he read by candlelight. Sometimes the wind would blow out the candle, and he would sit in the dark waiting for the flame to return. School in the village was small. There were few teachers, and sometimes they did not come. The classroom had broken desks and no glass in the windows. Amir still went every day. He liked listening to English words, even though the lessons were short. He wrote the words on pieces of old paper and practiced them at home. "One day I will speak like the people on the radio," he told Noor. She would laugh and clap her hands. Money was always a problem. When Amir was 10, his father got sick and could not work for a while. Amir started helping his mother make bread and clean the house. Sometimes he went with a neighbor to the market to carry bags for small coins. He saved every coin in a small tin under his pillow. Even with all the work, Amir kept reading. His teacher noticed his effort. "You are poor, but your mind is rich," she told him one afternoon. Those words stayed in his heart. He wanted to learn more, to see more than his small village. He wanted to speak English well, to study in the city, and to help his family. One evening, while the sun was going down, Amir sat on the roof of his house looking at the hills. He held his old English book in his hands. The paper smelled of dust and time. He whispered to himself, "I will go to the city. I will learn. I will change my life." The idea scared him, but it also gave him hope. His mother heard him and came up the steps. She sat beside him and put her hand on his shoulder. "The city is big," she said softly. "It can be hard." Amir looked at her and smiled. "I know, but my dream is bigger," he said. She nodded, but her eyes were wet. She wanted to keep him safe, but also wanted him to fly. From that day, Amir started preparing. He worked more. He read more. He saved more coins. He asked travelers about the city. He wrote English words on the walls of his room, so he could see them every morning. He was just a boy from a small village, but inside he felt ready to step into a bigger world. Amir's first big challenge came the very first day in the city. After eating the bread and drinking the tea, he thanked the man and the little girl and stepped back into the street. He did not know where to go. He had a small address written on a folded piece of paper. The name of a cheap room near the bus station. It was the only place he could afford for a few nights. He walked for a long time, asking people for directions. Most of them were busy and did not stop. Some answered in fast city language he could not understand. He showed them the paper, and they pointed left or right. The city streets twisted and turned. Amir's feet started to hurt. The sun climbed higher, and the air grew hot. Cars honked. People pushed past him. His bag felt heavier and heavier. When he finally found the street on his paper, his heart lifted. But at the end of the street, he saw a small crowd. A man in a dirty cap stood in front of a gate shouting at a young boy. The boy was crying. The man pointed at Amir and said something in a loud voice. Amir froze. The man walked over. "You looking for the room?" he asked. Amir nodded. "Too late. All full. No space. Go." He turned and went back to the gate. Amir felt the ground drop under his feet. He had nowhere else to go. He opened his bag and counted the coins in his envelope again. It was not enough for another guest house. The market noise around him grew louder. For the first time since he arrived, Amir felt truly lost. He sat on the edge of the road with his bag on his lap. People walked around him. Some looked at him. Most did not. A dog came and sniffed his shoes. He pushed it away gently. In his mind, he heard his mother's voice. "Be brave. Do not lose your dream." But his hands were shaking. He had only one old book, some clothes, and a few coins. The city felt huge, cold, and hard. As the afternoon sun burned above him, Amir faced his first real problem. He had no room, no plan, and no one to help him. He could turn back to the bus station and try to go home, or he could find a way to survive the night in this strange place. This was his first turning point. Amir sat on the roadside for a long time. The shadows of buildings grew longer as the sun went down. The street that had looked bright in the morning now felt cold and unfriendly. People hurried past him with bags, phones, and food. Nobody stopped to ask why a thin boy was sitting there with a torn bag. He stood up and began to walk again. He did not know where he was going. The city was a maze of streets and noise. His stomach was empty again. His throat was dry. He saw a shop selling water, but when he touched his coins, he knew he must save them. He walked on with a dry mouth. Near the station, he saw other boys his age. They were sitting on the pavement, cleaning shoes for customers. They had old wooden boxes, brushes, and small bottles of polish. One boy called to Amir. "Hey, want to work?" Amir stopped. The boy pointed to an empty box. "You can start. You only need hands." Amir wanted to say yes, but he also felt shy. He had never done this kind of work. But he remembered his father's sick hands, his mother's tired face, and the promise he had made. He nodded slowly. The boy smiled and handed him a brush. "Wipe shoes. You get coins. We share at night." That evening Amir cleaned shoes until his fingers ached. The polish stained his nails. He bent low over each shoe, rubbing until it shone. Customers did not look at his face. Some dropped coins without a word. Others shouted if he was slow. His knees hurt from kneeling on the hard ground. Still he worked. When the sky turned dark, the other boys gathered their coins. They counted Amir's share and gave him a few. "Enough for bread," the boy said. Amir closed his hand around the coins. They were warm from work, but not enough for a room. He would still sleep outside tonight. He bought a small piece of bread from a street seller and ate it slowly. Then he walked to a quiet corner of the bus station and sat against a wall. He put his bag under his head like a pillow. The floor was hard, the air smelled of fuel, and the noise never stopped. People came and went, shoes clicking on the tiles. Amir opened his old English book. Under the station lights the pages looked even older. He read the words slowly, whispering them under his breath. "I am, you are, he is." His eyes burned with tiredness, but he kept reading. It was his way of fighting back against the city. If he could not have a bed, at least he could still learn. A rat ran across the floor near his feet. A man shouted in the distance. The smell of fried food came from a stall. Amir pulled his jacket tight. He was cold and scared, but he also felt a small fire inside. "I will not give up," he thought. "Even here, even like this." He closed the book and closed his eyes. The sound of buses and voices filled his dreams. That night on the station floor was Amir's first real test of city life. He was hungry, tired, and dirty, yet inside he held on to the picture of his dream. A classroom, clean paper, a teacher speaking English, and himself understanding every word. He would pay any price for that dream. Morning light came through the bus station windows. Amir woke up stiff and cold. His bag was still under his head, and his book lay on his chest. People were already walking past, hurrying to work. He sat up slowly, rubbed his eyes, and put the book back into the bag. His stomach growled. He had only a few coins left. He went outside into the fresh air. The city looked different in the morning. Shops were opening. Vendors were shouting prices. The smell of hot tea filled the street. Amir decided to go back to the tea cart where the kind man and the little girl had helped him the day before. When he reached the cart, the girl smiled. "You came back," she said. The man looked at Amir and asked, "Did you find a room?" Amir shook his head. "No, not yet. I slept at the station." The man's eyes softened. He poured a glass of tea and gave Amir a piece of bread without asking for money. "Eat," he said simply. While Amir ate, a middle-aged man in a blue shirt came to the cart. He was carrying a stack of papers. He greeted the tea seller and started talking fast. Amir could not understand everything, but he caught a few words: school, helper, morning classes. The man in blue noticed Amir listening. "Do you know some English?" he asked. Amir nodded shyly. "A little," he said. The man smiled. "I teach English to children in a small school nearby," he said slowly so Amir could follow. "We need someone to clean the classroom and help bring books. We cannot pay much, but you can sit at the back and learn while we teach." Amir's eyes grew wide. "I can learn English?" he asked. "Yes," the teacher said, "if you work hard." Amir looked at the tea seller. The man nodded. "It's better than the station," he said quietly. Amir felt his heart jump. After one night on the floor, after walking the streets lost and hungry, here was a chance, small but real. A chance to work, to eat, and to learn English at the same time. He stood up quickly and bowed his head. "Thank you," he said to the teacher. "I will work hard." The teacher wrote an address on a paper and gave it to Amir. "Come tomorrow morning," he said. "We start at 7. Amir held the paper like a treasure. For the first time since leaving the village, he felt a spark of hope. As he walked away from the cart, Amir touched the old English book inside his bag. Soon he would have more than one book. Soon he would hear real teachers speaking English. He felt tired and hungry, but also stronger. He whispered to himself, "This is only the beginning." The next morning Amir woke before sunrise. He washed his face in the station bathroom and changed into his clean shirt. His hands still smelled of shoe polish. He looked at himself in the cracked mirror. Today is the day, he thought. He picked up his bag and walked quickly to the small school on the paper. The school was in a narrow street. The building was old but bright with paint. Children in simple uniforms ran inside laughing. Amir stood at the door, shy and unsure. The teacher in the blue shirt came out and smiled. "You came," he said. "Good. Come in." Amir followed him. The classroom was small, but full of books and drawings on the wall. The smell of chalk and paper filled the room. The teacher gave Amir a broom. "Sweep the floor first," he said. Amir started working at once. He wanted to prove himself. He wanted to stay. At first, everything went well. Amir cleaned, carried books, and even helped a boy find his lost pencil. When the class began, the teacher let Amir sit at the back. He opened his old book and listened. He could hear the teacher saying simple sentences. "This is a pen. That is a bag." The children repeated. Amir repeated too softly. For the first time he was inside a real English class. Then the big test came. During a short break, while the children went outside, the headmaster entered the classroom. He was an older man with sharp eyes. He saw Amir sitting at the back with his book. "Who is this?" he asked the teacher in a cold voice. "Why is he here?" The teacher explained quickly. "He is a poor boy. He helps clean the room. In return he sits and learns." The headmaster frowned. "We have no budget for another helper. He cannot stay here. This is a school, not a shelter." Amir's heart sank. He stood up and held his bag tightly. "Please, sir," he said in a small voice. "I will work. I will clean. I only want to learn. I will not disturb anyone." The headmaster shook his head. "Rules are rules," he said. "Take your things and leave." Amir felt tears burn his eyes. He had walked so far, slept on the floor, worked all evening, and finally found a door open to him. Now it was closing. The children were coming back into the room. The teacher looked at Amir helplessly. "I am sorry," he whispered. For a moment Amir thought about running out of the school and never coming back. He thought about going back to the station, back to polishing shoes. But then he remembered his mother's words. "Be afraid only of losing your dream." He took a deep breath and looked at the headmaster. "Sir," he said louder now, his voice shaking but clear, "give me 1 week. Only 1 week. If I do not work hard, if I disturb the class, I will leave myself. Please." The headmaster looked at Amir for a long time. The room was silent. Finally he sighed. "1 week," he said. "If there is any problem, you go." Then he turned and walked out. Amir's knees almost gave way. He sat back down, breathing fast. The teacher smiled a little. "You were brave," he said. Amir opened his book again. He could still hear his heart beating. The biggest challenge of his new life had come, and for now, he had passed it. Days passed slowly. Amir came to the school every morning before the sun was high. He swept the floors, wiped the desks, carried books, and filled the water jars. He worked quietly, smiling at the children and greeting the teachers. In return, he sat at the back of the class and listened with sharp ears. Every new word he repeated softly. Every new sentence he wrote in his small notebook. His hands were rough from work, but his mind was waking up. At first, some children laughed at him because his clothes were old. But Amir did not fight. He kept working, kept learning. The teacher noticed. "You have a good memory," he told Amir. "Keep going." Even the headmaster began to watch from the door. He saw Amir sweeping without being asked, staying late after class, helping small children with their reading. One afternoon, after class, the headmaster called Amir to his office. Amir's heart beat fast. He thought the week was finished, and maybe he would have to leave. But the headmaster's face was softer now. He held a paper in his hand. "Amir," he said, "I have seen you work hard. You keep your promise. From today you may sit in the class like any other student. You do not have to clean anymore. We will help you with your books." Amir's eyes filled with tears. He did not know what to say. He only whispered, "Thank you, sir." He held the paper, his name written as a real student. He walked out of the office, the paper shaking in his hand like a small flag of hope. That evening, Amir sat under the same tree near the station. But this time he had a new notebook and a small lunch the teacher had given him. He opened the notebook and wrote slowly in English, "My dream is alive." He looked at the sky turning orange and thought of his mother's words. He felt proud, not because life was easy now, but because he had not given up. He told himself, "One day I will teach other children like me. I will tell them, do not be afraid. Work hard. Speak up for your dream. The world will open." He closed his notebook, smiled, and whispered the new words he had learned that day. The sound of the words was like a song. The wind moved through the trees. He felt ready for tomorrow,